Hello and happy holiday or Merry Thanksgiving or however you say the right thing. This is again a special feature from the Movie Bros. If this is the first time hearing us, folks, this is the second special feature where we kind of cover holiday movies. And if this is again your first time, we also do regular episodes with regular movies. We post these episodes weekly. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us now, I believe, on Amazon as well as Apple podcasts, as well as Instagram at the movie underscore bros. I think that's roughly all the plugging of all the things you could find us and the ways to find us. You can like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notifications when we post episodes. You can tell your friends, tell your family, tell your pets.
Tell your
Yeah,
friendly?
my brain couldn't decide between friends or family because sometimes they're both.
Sometimes they're neither. That's okay.
Sometimes they're neither, exactly. So that's more or less what this is. And since it is uh, the month of November, we're doing Thanksgiving movies. And again, the way we decide these movies is we pick them individually. They're not like the standard, like, oh, this is the Christmas movie. This is not the Thanksgiving movie, that kind of thing. So it's totally up to interpretation.
And I would also say that this is definitely not the first idea Thanksgiving movie, because there are literally movies that are literally just called Thanksgiving. There are, there are slasher movies that are just called Thanksgiving. So we chose to go a more perhaps thematic route than the direct line to the title.
And more interesting and, to be honest, better movies. So
Oh yeah, no, the Thanksgiving movie by Eli Roth is not good.
yeah, to segue that, one of the themes, at least we've found for Thanksgiving, is usually a what you're thankful for slash mostly family stuff. And so, with that in mind, one of the movies, which we'll start with one, and then at some point we'll segue into another, is Knives Out, and of course, it's definitely all about family. The Thrombies, which before we get into the nitty gritty, Hayden, what's some fast facts?
All right, in our fast facts for Knives Out, this came out in 2019. This is written and directed by Rian Johnson, uh, who at the time had just finished coming off of The Last Jedi, but he's known for a plethora of other things like Looper and Brick.
And Brothers Bloom.
That is very true. I had forgotten. I'd only seen that the once, and I didn't love it, but it's been several years, so maybe I could rewatch it. Music in this is by his cousin Nathan Johnson, who also frequently works with him, just because when you work well with your family, why not? Cinematography here is by Steve Yedlin, another one of Rian Johnson's longtime collaborators. Just speaking for myself, I watched through some of the behind the scenes commentary after finishing this, and there was a strong sentiment of wanting to be a lot less corporate and a lot less, giant mega eyes watching everything you do after doing something like a Star Wars main installment. So he brought back a whole lot of his tried and true collaborators, and clearly it worked out because this went over very well with audiences. This stars a whole host of great actors, so
A whole
uh,
family.
a veritable family, if you will. This stars Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Anna de Armas, Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Shannon, Don Johnson, Tony Collette, Lakeith Stanfield, Christopher Plummer, Jaden Martell, Ricky Lindholm, and Frank Oz. And that's kind of all I got for Fast Facts.
And just kind of maybe to address the elephant in the room, you may know Ryan or Ryan Johnson, not whatever the heck you just said,
I
from The
just
Last
I,
Jedi.
I just heard his name said several different times by both him and other people. I'm sure it's Rian.
Anyway,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, he did do The Last Jedi. Um, yeah, you may like it, you may not. I would like at some point to do a Star Wars marathon over time where we do all the different movies since at least we did Phantom Menace at
Oh yeah.
some point. Even though if you listen back to
Um,
our episodes, that's one of the first ones that a lot of it got cut slash garbled audio. Like it's one of the not great episodes. Um, Either
I
way,
would definitely like
I
to
for
go back and do a rewatch of the series.
yes,
And maybe by the time we get to Last Jedi, I'll like it.
That's what I was about to say. I was like, so you may or may not like. It was very polarizing for a lot of people, whereas
Yes,
this
it
is
is
a
a
lot more.
divisive movie.
Everyone more or less liked Knives Out, whereas yeah, it was very divisive. So he was coming off something that, yeah, was a lot very very polarizing. So I'm glad he found something that there's. I think this is where you and I talked a little bit about Joker 2, where there's again too much oversight and meddling from the studio versus not enough. And this is clearly
Yes.
where this is the right amount where you should just let them do their thing, but they're not. I want to say greedy about it, or at least maybe they're professional about it. Where unlike Joker 2, where they kind of were just like, "Fuck it, we're gonna do whatever." I don't know. It just
Well, I think when you say fuck it and do whatever, it really brings out the kind of director you are. And clearly, the Todd Phillips, when you say fuck it and do whatever, you make crap. And when you're Rian Johnson, you say fuck it and do whatever, you make what is arguably one of the best movies in the past decade.
yeah. I was talking about this with our parents, but like 2019 when this came out, there was a lot of good movies that came. Like
Oh,
it was a
an
very good
incredibly
year for
solid
movies.
year.
However, I do think this was probably my favorite movie of the year. Like I had the most fun watching it, and I watched it multiple. I think I watched this twice in theaters.
I also watched it twice in theaters. Once with the family, and then once with some friends, and it was a fun experience for second time watching them piece together the plot and
Mm-hmm.
have all the fun that you had the first time around.
Sure, sure.
I think we've alluded to it several different times now, but why don't we lead off with our scores for this movie before we jump in to some rambling.
Sure. I mean, I gave this a this is a 5 out of 5. This is maybe a perfect movie.
Oh yeah, no, I'm right there with you. This is, I don't have it as a list, but I this makes the short list of perfect movies. I think there is no flaw I can find in this. It's excellent.
Well, I also think it's a perfect movie because it hits both of the categories that I would usually give something a high rating for A, actual enjoyment, and B, it's actually like if I looked at it objectively, it's a good movie. Because there's some movies that I love that are not great movies, and vice versa. Like, oh man, I might really enjoy Shrek, but it's not like an amazing movie.
Well,
Do you
I
know what
I,
I mean?
I don't want to play devil's advocate with Shrek, but like Shrek is an incredibly important animated movie as
Well,
far as
yes,
history
it
goes,
is.
and
It
I think
is.
that
Hey,
I
that's a
think that
separate
a
episode.
lot of it has aged really really well.
Yes, but
Granted, I can kind of point to the death of 2D animation, so Shrek can go fuck itself. But I do get what you're saying.
so that's another reason why I'm saying this is a perfect movie because it hits both of those categories for me.
Yeah, it's very enjoyable and well written, and it's also technically incredibly proficient.
Yeah, there's not really. I mean, folks, just kind of as a heads up, this might be I don't know 45 minutes of Hayden and I just drooling over this movie, but
Well, to be fair, we might do that with the second movie too.
that's also
But
fair.
we'll get to that bridge when we get there.
Well, I mean, we've set our ratings. Where do you want to get into this?
I mean, I just kind of have generalized thoughts while I rewatch this because there's less for me to, pick apart as we sometimes do. Like, I mean, so my first, um, little paragraph here is just some interesting stuff that I have down is that this is shot digitally and then it's mocked up in post to look like it's shot on physical film in the same way that the holdovers does the exact same thing, but in that one it's a lot more like obvious and extreme. But they added
Hmm.
film grain to this and they added slight little side shifts to make it look like you're watching something in a reel, and I thought that's really interesting. Another thing that I learned while watching the behind the scenes is that in the sort of opening scene where they're doing all of the interrogations in the library,
Mm-hmm.
and he's doing his whole thing where he's tapping on the piano. In the script, he's actually just tapping his foot on the floor. But then when they did that for real on the day, no one could hear it. It wasn't loud enough. And short of having him like stomping on the floor, they're like, okay, no, we got to do something else. So they just had a piano as set design in a different room because a lot of this was actually shot in the same house that they pulled the exteriors from. We're like, okay, we're gonna wheel this in here. It still fits. It's still fine, and that's what's actually made it in, which I think makes it a lot more interesting.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a cool little piece of trivia. Because I do remember. I mean, they used the piano bit. I even remember in the trailer for this.
Yes.
But also as a beginning scene, what a way to set up exactly who everyone is. Then the
Oh,
interview, like
it's
it's
it's so
perfect.
smart. Like
Yes, exactly.
there even though there is clearly a lot of dialogue going on, there is everything that is said for a reason. There's almost no filler or fluff in this movie whatsoever. Like it's so it is
Refreshing
so yeah, like
compared to what we watched last week.
the less said about
Tales from
Tales from
Earthsea.
Earthsea, the better. That
Holy
was
shit.
such a disappointing snooze fest, and this is absolutely the complete opposite.
Well, hey, we've got diversity. That's why people tune in for this.
Yes. Um, fun fact: when I originally watched this in theaters, I was not sold on Daniel Craig's accent in this. Over time,
Oh, I don't know. I like it
I don't know. Someone who's only ever known him to
as
be
Bond.
well, not just Bond, but to have a British accent in pretty much whatever he shows up in. It was so jarring to have him just straight out of the gate doing Foghorn Leghorn, essentially.
All right,
Uh,
Chris Evans.
Well, no, that's literally part of his inspiration for this.
Well, yes, it's just I know that's the line that Chris Evans
Yes,
says.
that is also a line. But I would say is that clearly I'm rating this as a perfect movie. It has grown on me immensely every time I've rewatched this because I can't not envision this character being that over the top and almost cartoony while still being a realistic human being. Like it fits in way too well with the sort of drama, sort of comedy that is this movie. I think it would be too cut and dry if he just had a normal American accent.
Agreed.
Well, what do you have?
Well, the music is fantastic.
I I love it so much, and I so wish it was available physically in a format other than vinyl, just because I'm not a vinyl person. But I listen to this without exaggeration, maybe once a week.
It's so good.
It's bouncy, it's mysterious, it works on a thematic level because whenever they're within the house, they have a recording from a cello quintet to make everything seem smaller, more claustrophobic, more intimate, and then whenever we're going to the outside and we're doing all the car chase bits and the parts where they're doing the investigating, they're actually using a full orchestra, so it feels like when you're inside the house things feel small, but when you're outside the house they feel larger, more open. I cannot heap enough praise upon this music. It's so good.
I feel like I just need to like cue you with little like, oh, this part, and then you can just like blah blah blah.
Yeah, but I don't want to. Um so what did you think of the cinematography in this?
Well, it was actually at least interesting. All the blocking choices, especially like in the, I mean, almost every room. At least there was layers of people, and because it was such a diverse cast of both, like everything from their costuming to like who they are as a person. It was so easy to make it look not bunched up, not all everything blending together. There's a couple points where I wrote, God, I don't remember where it is in my notes, but I mean, even especially, I mean, I think I saw you post this on our Instagram, but especially
I
the
did, yes.
knife chair. Yes, no, it's
Oh,
fantastic.
that is some
Well, there's
inspired bit of set design.
well, even the like, I think it's in it's almost like the camera is sitting in the lawn, and it's kind of dusky time of
Yeah, it's
day.
the
It's the
opening
house.
shot.
Yeah, it's when the dogs
Oh,
are
it's
like running up.
gorgeous.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, there's parts where it's like on the inside of the upstairs hallway when she or he, I can't remember if it's Anna de Armas or Chris Evans coming in through uh the fake window. I mean, everything.
They both do it, so technically
But,
you're both right.
so yes, I was a big fan of the cinematography to say the least. Yes, there was a point where I said, "Oh, so many good shots." Um, what
I'm gonna
else?
probably agree with you that I really love the I mean, not just like the framing, but how layered all the environments feel because you have the immediate foreground, then you have all of the like believable bric-a-brac filling the corner of any given room, and then you have the characters, and then you have all the color grading. There's so much attention to detail and like everything has like three different layers and nothing feels cardboard in a way where
Hmm.
I I I like murder mysteries and um, I watched the Kenneth Branagh Death on the Nile, and while that is entirely competent and fine and serviceable, it
It's
is it
it's
is
fine.
leagues away from the amount of quality you get, especially in the setting in this, because that's
Oh, for
just
sure.
various different angles of a boat, and there's only so many different ways you can do a boat. While it is true, this takes place in roughly four different locations for the entire runtime, it never becomes old because there's always a new way that they're placing the camera, that they're doing the lighting, that they're placing the characters to make even the exact same room from the same scene ago feel brand new. There's so much attention to making everything feel fresh each time.
Part of it, what I noticed, I mean, I think I have this written like 4 or 5 times. Uh, I think it's just very much up my alley, but all man, every single person, their wardrobe, I would wear that today. Like, all the dudes,
Oh
all
yeah,
the
a hundred
different
percent.
jackets, uh, the, Benoit Blanc, Daniel Craig has, like, 4 different ties he wears. I'm like, "Oh, every single one of them is fantastic." Or even the, like, kind of generic leather jacket, white shirt with the tie. It's not Lakeith Stanfield, it's the other cop.
Oh, I didn't get his name, but yes.
We should we'll talk about them in a second, but, like, all of everyone's outfit, I was like, "Oh, these." It just it felt like it fit the environment, but also it felt like each person almost had their own, like, it was like I was looking at a cast of Clue, not so very much like everyone's, this person's all in purple, this one's all in orange, but it felt
Okay,
like it was
so
very individual.
that is 1,000% on purpose because
Well, no, I'm sure it
no,
is.
no, well, no, no. Because I was just watching through some of the behind the scenes stuff. It was incredibly deliberate that they wanted y- to be able to pick up what character you're looking at from like a mile away by their clothes because they wanted them to feel like you're watching a Clue movie. So like that's why everyone is in a different color. That's why everyone has a
Yes.
distinct style that they're going for. No one is, oh, I'm just going to wear a suit. No, no, no. You're going to wear a leather suit with a purple tie and you're going to have, you know, pants that don't go
Yes.
all the way down your ankles and you have fancy
Yes.
socks. Like it was a very much deliberate choice. They want you to feel like you're watching a Clue game.
Well, I mean, there is a line, I can't remember who said it or when they said it, but someone said practically lives in a Clue board. I can't remember who
That
said
is
it.
Lakeith Stanfield talking to
What
Daniel
did you say his
Craig.
first name was?
Man, let me just see how it's spelled
I
because I'm sure I'm butchering it. Okay,
It's
it is
Lakeith.
spelled. Okay, I've never heard it pronounced. I've only ever seen it written, so I thought
I'm
it was
pretty sure it's
Lakeith.
Lakeith Stanfield.
Fine, Lakeith Stanfield says that to Daniel Craig.
Yes, okay, because I was like, someone definitely says this. Speaking of him and speaking of his buddy, I watched them 2, like, they definitely stole the scenes, they were every single scene they were in.
Oh yeah,
All I
they're
wanted
having a
was
ton of
more of
fun.
them. Well, I saw a theory online at some point where, like, a mini series of just them,
Yeah, I'd
and
do
every
that.
once in a while, Benoit Blanc, like, shows up, like, as, gives them advice, but I would definitely watch a mini series of just them. They were fantastic.
Oh yeah, no, I mean they were a ton of fun. They weren't like comedic relief to the point where it was like obviously silly, but they were funny enough to where even when they were talking about people being murdered and different like motives and everything like that, they still brought enough levity to any given scene to where it was still a good mix of mood. I would say. Someone who I also really love the vibes of is Anna de Armas and Daniel Craig's characters, respectively. Here make a great pair. I know that she doesn't come back for Glass Onion, but I would put her in the next one. Like they make such a good Holmes and Watson
They
like
do.
duo.
They do.
I would love
But
to see them repaired.
it only works, at least in Knives Out, for this story. I don't think they
Oh, I
could bring her.
know,
I
but
think
it's just like
no. What I'm saying is, I think they could come back in a different kind of project together as like a
no, I'm
mentor mentee
saying
kind of thing. But
play play the exact same characters, have her show up in the next one, you know, and have them solve another murder. I think it would be a ton of fun.
I what I appreciate about Knives Out, and even to a certain degree, Glass Onion, is they're not trying to do the same old, even from movie to movie. So I would, as much as I like them together, and I would want them to do more things together, I would not want her to come back. I like that they are at least trying to continue to keep it fresh with every movie, both with the cast and with the story.
That's true. That's true. Um, so one of the things I have down here is that there is a quote from Robert Zemeckis, who is a director of
Yes, yes.
a ton of stuff, but also notably of the Back to the Future movies. And he has a quote saying, "Give your story a flux capacitor, something that is fantastical and impossible, but you never explain it because as long as your characters act as though this is normal, the audience will buy that." And I like that in this that can be applied to Marta vomiting whenever she's lying because that's completely obviously fake and, and no one will actually believe that. But the fact that everyone, it's mentioned and then it just completely is worked into the logic of the movie. I like that it is so completely bought by the audience that it's just treated
Hmm.
as normal.
Oh yeah, I mean, I literally wrote, "Throw up truth gimmick is a gimmick, but I do think it works."
And I think what works it was as far as gimmick wise in this one so much more than it does in its sequel Glass Onion is that this only has the one gimmick and it's that. I think not to jump ahead and maybe we talk about Glass Onion at some point in the future, but I think
Hmm.
Glass Onion's problem is that there are too many unbelievable gimmicks going on at one time. There's the twins, there's the unobtainium, there's the we're on a fantastical island.
Oh,
There's too many
we
things
can talk
going
about it.
on that
We can talk
I
about it.
I think detract from that movie. But you know that's another discussion. I do like that in this one it is fairly grounded outside of that.
Going back to the characters beyond Lakeith and whatever his buddy's name is, uh, I want to know more about Nana. Like,
Give me the
what a
Nana prequel story set it like 1912.
oh no, it's just like what a. I would love to like be even just sit in the room and listen to how they develop the characters for this, because every single one of these people are so, I don't want to say blown more out of proportion. Like they are grounded real
They're
people, but they are so much.
they're all caricatures of real people that you probably can
Exactly.
think of, and I think it
Like
works really well.
even Nana, who is like the old grandma who, I mean, yes, every single character is more than a actual person.
I think I think the only person who isn't is actually Marta, Ana de Armas's character, and that's why I think she works well as the odd one out. Is that she's the only one who reacts like a normal human being the whole movie.
And I would say Jamie Lee Curtis is close. I mean, she's
That's
pretty close.
true, but I
Yeah.
think she's still definitely playing into the I am a crazy rich old lady.
Well, literally, my next thing I wrote was like the whole ground up. I built this for myself. I know people who like that's their whole personality. Like, oh, I'm an independent entrepreneur. Like this, like that is. I get it. I get that you want to take pride, but it is definitely a from the people I know, and obviously in this, it's usually a personality defining trait. Like that is what you
Yeah,
make your identity around, and maybe that's because you have to in order to succeed.
I
It's just
do
something
think that
I noticed.
I do think it's interesting that he I should say Benoit Blanc absolutely plays into her vanity on that fact
Oh, of
when they're
course.
doing like the interrogation bit and gets her to start speaking badly about her family because he also says, "Oh, you're, you know,
Your brother, yeah.
your brother," and then she's like, "Oh, well, no, actually." I don't
Of
know.
course.
I thought that was fun.
Oh, yeah, well, then they're like, "Oh, are you trying to bait me? I'm not stupid enough," and then they literally cut to her husband. Yes.
There's no way I'll talk bad about my family. Smash cut to Don Johnson just shitting on everybody. I There's no amount of time that I can watch this every single time. That is a laugh out loud moment. It's
Oh, yeah,
so
I
good.
laugh every
It's
time.
so good. It's so well timed and funny.
Well, that's why, like, another good part of this, again, is the casting. Like, if you go down the list, yeah, they're all well-known people, but they're all so very different. Like, I would have never put Don Johnson with, like, Michael Shannon and Anna de Armas and Daniel like, it's such a weird and it works so well.
Yes.
Uh, that's why again, that's one of the main reasons I like these movies, even the second one, because it is an eclectic cast. And I think after this came out and it had such success, I've noticed there are more movies with bigger ensemble casts. Um, like Dune is a huge stack cast. Well, all the Wes Anderson movies. If you look backwards, even like Moonrise Kingdom only had like
That's a
four or
huge
five.
cast.
Mm, if you look at that compared to like French Dispatch has like 40 people in it, dude.
I've yet to see French Dispatch just because I heard so many mixed things about it.
I feel very mixed up. Some parts of it I absolutely love, and some parts I do not.
Just like I'd heard pretty much nothing but bad things about Asteroid City.
Okay, so I've seen it twice. The first time I did not like it. Second time I definitely came around to it, but again, I feel like it's too. This is a separate conversation, but it's too far. Wes Anderson, like
Yeah, you do need some reining in on him, or he can just get too weird.
yes, and that's where I felt it was. Either way, that's beside the point.
Besides the
Um,
point,
speaking of
I
cast,
also just love the cast on this. I'm just gonna agree. Just there's no bad casting in this in the whole thing. Everyone just fully embodies their character, even for the the short amount of time that they're on screen. Like Fran. I don't know who that actress is. I didn't write her down, but she's great in the role that she's here. Everyone comes across super well.
well, I mean, I think of what a role change for Chris Evans. Oh, and, I mean, and Daniel Craig, but I mean, to the
Oh,
kind of arrogant,
I'm
like,
sure that was intentional to go from playing, James Bond and Captain America respectively to playing the villain, spoilers or whatever, and
yeah,
then
yes,
a a southern detective. I'm sure that was incredibly freeing for the both of those guys who had been locked into, those characters that they're known for so long.
and I think it worked well.
Yeah, I mean, actually, something I've written down here is that while this did get a Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay, I am surprised it didn't get more, especially for Anna de Armas and Daniel Craig and Chris Evans. They're all acting
Yes.
really, really good. Like, I'm just surprised
Well,
there wasn't more
again,
nods to this.
it was a big year for movies, dude. Like, I looked up and I was like, oh man, there's a ton of good stuff that year.
I know. It just every time I rewatch this, I'm just like, man, how did this not get more statues?
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, all around it really was like one of those like lightning in a bottle that you probably couldn't replicate this kind of movie.
Which, not to allude to Glass Onion, that is true.
I mean, again, we we might talk about this on a future episode, but it's not bad. I
It's
would
not
still
bad. It's
get.
just not as good.
It's not as good. I would still probably give it like a 3.5, 4 out of 5, but it's not. Yeah, it's not a
Yeah,
perfect movie.
yeah.
Christopher Plummer. I mean, that who's been around forever, and
I'm
I
I'm
randomly
not
just
sure
saw
if he's
him in
still alive.
he's not. Um,
I'm gonna say this might have been one of his final movies.
this was I think this was one of his final movies. Yeah.
But like
But
even for like all the 5 minutes he's on screen in this, he does really
no,
good
he's
too.
excellent. Yeah.
Like he's funny, he's dramatic. It's awesome.
Jumping back to the cinematography, there was one scene. Basically, all the entire movie is shot in a way that felt cinematic and it felt correct for the movie. But there is one scene where the camera uh, is very much how do I word this without giving? I'm trying to have you guess it, but it's just very different. Can you think of the scene that I'm thinking of?
I'm gonna need more of a clue other than it's different.
It doesn't feel as concise and controlled.
Is it any of the car chase?
No, actually, not at all. No,
Um,
it's basically right when she finds out she gets everything. When it's her walking out to the car
oh,
to
oh,
try to
yeah,
get away,
yeah,
they switch
the
to like
handy
a
cam
shaky
shot.
cam, hand cam. Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
and I don't really like that stuff, but it actually made sense for the story and the feeling of the emotions happening, but also because so much of the other movie was not that, it hit harder when they did switch to that for that scene. So no, I don't want an entire movie that way like Cloverfield, but I think it actually made sense for the
Yeah,
purpose.
I literally have something written down for that. I love the subtle use of handy cam when the family first gets the news of the will and they rush Marta on the stairs. It feels
Mhm.
a lot more chaotic and more anxiety inducing, and it works really well for the scene, even though it doesn't show up again later. Um, not connected to anything. The freaking donuts whole line is so
Oh,
funny. It's so wacky. Like,
well,
that's such an insane analogy. How do you deliver that and not crack up? There's a hole in my donut hole, but that donut is not a donut at all. What the fuck does that mean, Benoit Blanc?
I'm going through my document really quickly and highlighting all the times I just wrote down whatever the line was because I liked the line so much, and there's a lot of this that's getting highlighted.
Well,
Let's
read
see.
some of them off.
Hold on, hold on. Oh, so the first one that has been made into such a meme over the years, the whole "makes no damn sense, compels me
Compels
though."
me though.
Oh, it's
Yes.
fantastic. A more subtle one that I feel like I don't know, again, maybe this is my weird tism sneaking out, but I latch on to weird one-lines from movies, and one that I caught was when, Christopher Plummer and Anna de Armas are playing Go, uh, and he's like, "Oh, why do you always beat me?" And, the editing, the cutting there, I actually do really like as well, but
Oh yeah, with like the jump cuts to like the close up
yes,
of the chips. It's very
yes.
nice.
And she says, "Oh, it's because you're trying to win. I'm trying to make a beautiful pattern." I don't know
Yeah.
why that stuck with me. The part where they reference that Nana has eaten the entire salmon spread, always like so funny. Because
Oh
again,
yeah.
it's not like big slapstick comedy. It's subtle, still really funny, but it doesn't take away from the semi-serious. This is a murder mystery.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And again, more Foghorn Leghorn, like kind of waxing wisdom vibes, where he's sitting with Nana. Why is grief the providence of youth? And then age deepens all feelings, including grief.
Yeah.
Or pack of vultures at the feast when he's talking about the family before he says it's
Pack
actually
of
a
vultures, knives out, beaks bloody. Yeah.
yes.
It's a
Or
great line.
I love in for a penny, in for a pound. I love that line.
Oh, especially coming from Chris Evans towards the end, like it coming off of like doing. I want to say it was Endgame. I don't know if sorry, I want to say it was Infinity War. I'm not sure Endgame had come out yet at this point, but like
This is
Chris,
2019.
yeah.
It might have been. I think it was that year. So
Oh, well,
I think yeah, Endgame was early summer, and I think Knives Out was in the winter time sometime. So
yeah, this was a Christmas release.
yeah, so same year, but man, yeah, what a great year for Chris Evans. Holy shit,
Well, just to see him, not that there's anything wrong with the way he portrays Chris Evans, or
Captain
not
America.
there's a yes, not that there's anything wrong with the way he portrays Steve Rogers, but like just to see him actually get to act and do some gamut of emotion in this, it's so good. I always love seeing genre actors get to flex.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I love the whole. I mean, the whole throw up confession, fantastic. And
I
again, that's where it was a gimmick, but again, I think the gimmick works. I forgot a line. when Benoit Blanc is talking about the will reading, and he says it's community theater of a tax return. Great.
That's such a great line.
Or,
It's
uh
such a good line.
or literally just, Chris Evans saying, "Eat shit" to everyone, also
Um,
fantastic.
there's a series of lines when the family finds out that everything's going to Marta, and just I mean everyone's throwing out great one-liners at her,
Mhm.
and granted they're really mean, but like there's so many great pieces of dialogue there. I think like Jada Martell, who plays the young kid, throws out,
Yes.
"Have you been boinking my grandpa?" And then everyone kind of has a collective moment where they, they look at it and they go, "Boinking? Really?" It's so good.
Yes. Oh, yeah,
Um,
I even wrote the whole family, the will reading, the staging of, like, how they if the shot is basically from the desk of the person reading the will and how the room is set up of, like, the couple sitting together and this person's like, it just
oh, it's
again, very nice framing.
if there is one thing I can say about the camera work, even though it's pretty much excellent from beginning to end, everything feels artistic. Like it's not just that it's technically proficient; it feels artistic, and like the colors are all gorgeous. Lots of the crane shots towards the end, where it's contrasting Marta on the balcony looking down at the family, looks like a painting. The opening scene with the dogs running up at dusk looks incredible. All the raises should be given to whoever made these things happen. This is such a gorgeous looking movie.
Speaking of gorgeous looking, there's 2 different sequences that were edited based off the interview's perspective, which I don't know why I never
Oh yeah,
think I've
yeah, yeah,
seen
yeah,
this
yeah.
I think I've seen this, like, 3 times already. I
I
never
think I
noticed
have
that
this
when
written down, but I'm gonna let you go ahead because I don't know if we're talking about the same thing yet.
well, there's 2. One of them is, the when they're first doing the interview and they're talking about Christopher Plummer's birthday, every time they set down the cake, it's a different set of people setting down the cake near him and being
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
happy.
yeah. That's what I've
I
written
had
down.
never noticed that. I
I,
was like,
I,
"Oh, this
I'm
is
sure I noticed it
fantastic."
before, but I decided to actually pay attention to it this time. I like how both that's funny, but also it shows how all of the family members are selfish,
Well, yeah,
and
and how they think about
they
things. Well, it's
yes,
also
and
the
they
same thing.
remember his birthday party being about them.
Sure. Well, it's the same thing later on. Similar kind of sequence. Again, it's I believe it's in the interview that they call back and it shows all of them talking to Marta at the later on in the evening. They all reference her being from a different country.
It's a running joke. Yes,
Oh, yeah, it's
she's either
fantastic.
from Paraguay or she's from Uruguay or she's from you know
Brazil or
Portugal or
something like that, yeah.
something.
The squeak, I mean, again, it's very specific, but the squeak on the knife when Chris Evans pulls it back out of, Ana de
Oh,
Armas,
it's yes.
it's so good.
And again, having just watched some of the behind the scenes stuff, that is an in-camera captured sound.
Good,
Like
good.
that's not like edited in for ADR or anything. That's an in-camera prop knife that they just, you know, they have the microphone literally just out of frame so you can get all of the, the squealing and the squeaking of the springs pulling back on the blade. It's such a great sound.
And I don't know, I can't remember what I'm referencing, but at some point there's a piano, melody at the end that was really good, but I honestly can't remember why wrote it.
That's that's the ending bit where they're doing with slow motion, and it's the shots of Marta on the
Balcony,
balcony, and you have
Chris Evans
Ransom
and
getting
yes.
arrested, and again, the music is phenomenal. So one thing I would like to point out that I thought was interesting is that there is, I mean, granted, this is not like a fantasy movie, so you wouldn't expect a whole lot of CGI, but they captured almost everything within camera, like that knife.
Sure.
There is very little that they didn't, just capture organically. The one thing that there is a green screen in nearly every single shot scene that it shows up in is that the portrait of Harlan was not yet done by the time that they were actually going to start the principal photography. So
Hmm.
each shot of it is just a solid green background in that frame, and then it's added in post production.
Well, granted, every time in the movie that they show it, it is slightly different.
Yes, until he's smiling at the end, which I think it's a nice touch, even if it does feel a little bit fantastical for this.
Sure, no, I think it's totally I think it's the I wouldn't go any more than that kind of fantasticalness to a movie, but I think it works well. I do have 2 questions, and first one, do you think she helps any of the family after the
Oh,
movie's over?
afterwards,
Yeah, who if she does, she doesn't have to help anyone, but who do you think she helps?
I think she probably helps the daughter who
Yes,
goes to school. I think she
yes,
probably helps pay off her school
yeah.
continually, and I think probably Jamie Lee Curtis's character maybe, just because she was the only one who actually came out and hugged her and talked to her a little bit. I think everyone else, she's just gonna say, "Screw you,"
I don't
because
know.
those are the only 2 characters that were actually nice,
Semi, yeah.
or they at least stayed nice nearly the whole time. Like, I would have said, maybe Michael Shannon's character since he clearly wants to do more with the books, but that dude turns into a right jackass throughout this movie.
Well,
So,
yeah.
I don't know if it'd be him.
But I do like again, maybe just to talk about him for a second, but usually he's very good at it, but usually he plays a more, like, overly angry, aggressive
He's much more subdued in
he's
this.
much more subdued in this, and I actually think he pulls it off really well.
Yes, it's definitely not what he's known for, but I like that he's playing against type.
Yes.
Just a line I have down here is that it is a staple of the genre to have the retelling of the events, in the whole setting of the detective talking to the suspect at the end, and he's, re-summarizing the movie as an explanation. But it always works really well. I love that scene here. You get Daniel Craig really firing on all cylinders for his acting. You have all the quick editing of all the events coming together. It's
Mhm.
always satisfying.
Yes, well, it's kind of the same reason why when you watch, like, a heist movie, it's very satisfying because everything is all the right cogs and gears are working together correctly.
Yes. And you finally get like explanations to things that may have seemed vague at one time.
Mhm. My other question is, because it is such A, good cast, B, such a, like, very specific on who the characters are, their costumes, their desires, their drive for their choices, is there any one character that you, A, thought stood out, and or B, you'd want to be them?
Um oh, I don't know if there's anyone in this movie I want to be. Everyone's kind of a dick outside of Marta, and I don't want to be a Hispanic woman. Um I mean, it is hard not to go the obvious answer and just say Marta is the standout character because so much of it is seen through her perspective or Daniel Craig's character. But I mean, clearly they're the obvious choices. I mean, they get the most character growth, they get the most dialogue, they get the most time on screen. I think I would like to see Ransom again show up in something just because I think he is a layered character you could get more things out of. But it's hard not to choose Marta or Benoit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the right call that they center these movies around Daniel Craig because A, he knows what he's doing. He is actually a good actor. He's not just a pretty face. His character has got enough layers to it.
Yeah,
But yes, I also agree that I want more Ransom. I want more Chris Evans in this kind of role. But again, it doesn't make narrative sense to bring him back.
that's true.
But yes, I mean, between uh, his playing against part, all of his dude, his sweater, the coat, even his
You
fucking
literally have a
scarf, dude.
reproduction code of his.
Dude, it's fantastic. I've been looking at dude, literally while when I rewatched this, I started looking for, sweaters and the
And
scarf
say
to do the whole bit.
you aren't you
So
still
good.
looking for a cable knit kind of like he has, or do you
Well,
have one?
I don't I have one, it's blue, it's okay, but it's not the exact oh, it's
His is like super chunky, and you can really see the designs.
correct. It's very similar to the one that, Billy Crystal wears in When Harry Met Sally, which
Yeah,
great movie, we should maybe watch that at some point, but, oh, dude, it's fantastic. It's such a
I'm not a
it's
fan.
very, like, cozy, comforting.
See, I that's not the vibe I got from it, but if you really like it, that's fine. Things that are
Okay.
cozy and comforting to me, movie wise, are definitely not going to be the same for you because my mind immediately thinks of something like Silence of the Lambs. But
What?
it look, and that's for personal reasons.
Dude, you
That
that might be an issue, dude. Like, if cozy and comforting is, "Let's talk to this cannibal, Hannibal Lecter,"
man, it could have been worse. I
uh,
could have said, "Oh, I own all 8 Saw movies. I could, be cozy and comforting watching people torture themselves." It could be
I
worse.
I swear to God, before you said Silence of the Lambs, I was like, "Is he gonna say Saw?" I'm not joking. I 100% thought you were gonna say that.
Well, now that you mention it, yes, I do love the Saw movies.
Okay. Alright, that
Okay.
we're getting too far off track here. Jesus
This
Christ.
thi this bit's not gonna make it in, it's
No,
okay.
no, no, keep it in, keep it in.
Okay, okay, okay. Um, so while I have already mentioned this before, it is interesting watching some of the behind the scenes stuff about how this came to be out of the perceived frustrations of Rian Johnson's workings with Disney and the huge mega corporation that it is, and that had The Last Jedi not been so divisive, we may not have gotten Knives Out or Glass Onion because he may have just gone back to make a third Star Wars movie instead. So it is interesting to think that, maybe it's okay that not everyone loved that movie because I think if we have to live with that being the reality as long as we get this instead, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it too, and it's a nice thought to think of, 'cause when he was I think it's when it was before Last Jedi had released, they had already said he was gonna do a trilogy of his own outside of,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
Skywalker stuff, which I was actually really pumped for,
Well, so that's
but if
allegedly still happening, but their
eh,
schedule is so up in the air now with all of their projects in kind of limbo.
mhm.
It
Well,
may not happen now.
which again, if that means he gets to do more of this kinda stuff, I'm perfectly fine with that. He
Absolutely.
he's probably up I mean, I don't this might be a separate episode where we just kinda talk general movie stuff, but he's definitely probably up there for my favorite directors of mine, to be honest.
I mean, I so his good stuff is very good. I do think some of his other movies fall a little bit flat for me, so I don't know if I would consider him one of my favorite directors, but he certainly made some of my favorite movies.
Something for, maybe a later discussion because I think that would be interesting to
Absolutely.
talk about that stuff.
Sure.
Um,
Um,
what else do I got? Oh, I
that
also
that's kind
this
of
is
it
kind
for mine. So why don't you go ahead? Sorry.
it's fine. Uh, I like that the mug is at the very, very beginning, and it's also at the very, very end. It's a nice little callback, as well as the painting that they show throughout.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I know we already kinda touched on it, but I feel like I can't even remember what specific scene made me think of this, but I wrote, "The house is literally a character in its own, both interior and exterior." What I found
I mean,
interesting because
it's just true.
yeah, what I found interesting though is, yes, if you look the actual outside facade of the house, that is not what that house looks like. If you, like, look into it, yes, the property and everything, that's the property, but they basically remade the entire outside of the house to look like it was from a murder mystery, um, which I
Yep.
just thought was interesting.
When they were doing location scouting for this, uh, again from the behind the scenes thing, the only direction they had from the director was like, okay, it needs to read murder mystery. You need to be able to envision this on the front of a board game, and that's kind of how they found this house.
Mhm. What else? Oh, it seems like maybe a dumb thing, but
Hey, we love dumb things
I
here. I'm one of them.
we've got plenty of them. Uh, I can't remember if this is a completely original idea from Ryan Johnson or if this is pulled from a book or anything, but even the even the names, I was like, "Oh, dude, Benoit Blanc, that's just a dope name for a detective." Like, that just it sounds like it should be a detective. Even Ransom, like,
Yeah.
Ransom seems like like, yeah, that just makes sense.
So this is a 100% original story, although there are very obvious influences and
Well,
things that
sure.
are like purposeful. He talked about, oh, I really wanted to call back to the old Agatha Christie movies, and I really love Poirot as a concept, someone who's flamboyant and weird, and a fish out of water no matter what setting he's in. That's why Benoit Blanc, has an accent in this. It is kind of strange. So there are definitely purposeful influences, but this isn't based on anything. No.
Maybe this is jumping ahead as well, but his costuming in this, all of the like tweed classic like detective
He
outfits
looks
are
super comfy the whole time.
well, and he just looks the part of both comfy, but also I don't know. Again, between the name, the outfits, even the glasses, it just makes sense for who the character is. And even when they jump ahead to Glass Onion, way different. And again, it's at a tropical island. Maybe we'll talk about this, but I still feel like his costuming of that is still like a
Still feels
subset.
like him,
It
yeah.
still feels like him exactly. It's still continuing the character.
You know, like, even before I had seen Glass Onion, if you would have asked me, "Okay, what does Benoit Blanc dress like in the summer?" That's kind of what I would have assumed, you know? Nice
Hmm.
dress shirts, an ascot, you know,
Oh, it's got
board
to have an
shorts,
ascot.
like, that makes sense.
Yes, 100%. There's a point that I wrote baby driver reference. I don't.
Yes.
I think someone said it during the car chase. I don't even remember.
Ransom says it to Marta in, during the car chase.
And then I also wrote shh during reveal. No idea what that is about.
During reveal. Yep, I don't know.
Shush during. I don't know. Either way, that's all I got. And so with that, folks, that's our thoughts and rambles on Knives Out. Obviously, we loved it. If you love it, tell us. If you didn't love it, tell us as well. If you haven't
If you
seen it,
didn't love us, you can see yourself to the door. This is a Knives Out glazing community here.
if you haven't seen it, I Hayden, where is this? I don't know if it's. I mean, I just used a
So
copy of it.
I bought myself a physical copy of it.
I don't
I
really.
don't
I
know where
think you
it's
can
streaming.
rent it, maybe from like
I'm
Amazon Prime, but
I mean, everything under the sun is available to rent for Amazon Prime. I'm sure it's there. I could have sworn it was available at one time on Netflix, but it might not be anymore.
probably not. Either way, if you have opinions, if you don't have opinion, if you just want to say hi, come say hi. You can find us on Spotify and Instagram. But take a break, catch your breath, and in a moment we'll be back with our next Thanksgiving themed, more or less, movie.
Stick around, we'll be right back.